This is Gemara Baba Basra Daf Nun Beis, and we're holding on the bottom of Nun Aleph Amid Beis, 5 lines from the bottom at the 2 dots. Tanu Rabbanan quotes a brisa dealing with the halachas of something owned, money owned by a woman, and her husband's right to it. So Tanu Rabbanan in Mikablin Pikdainais. One cannot accept a deposit from women, slaves, or children. Why? Because we have to assume that the money might not be theirs. As Rashi at the end of the narrow line says, because we have to suspect that it's stolen money of their husbands or their masters, and children as well take it from the place that they're living in. And therefore, we cannot accept a deposit from these people. Kibel min isha, yachzer isha. If Lamaisa one did accept a deposit from a married woman, he returns it to her. Now, this, of course, is the flip side. Says Rashi, the Rashbam, we do not return it to the husband. So we're sort of playing both sides of the coin. On one hand, we're saying we're not allowed to accept deposits from these people because it might be stolen. On the other hand, if we do accept it, we don't assume that it is actually stolen, but you have to return it. If she dies, then we do give it to her husband. Kibel min ha'eved, someone accepted a deposit from a slave. Yachzer le'eved v'meis, yachzer le'rabbi. We turn over to Nundalid Amid Aleph. Kibel min ha'katan, Yaseh loy skula, should make a trust for him. V'meis, yachzer liyarshav. So in all three cases, we're not supposed to be taking the deposit from these entities. If it is done, the halacha is that it's returned to the person, that in as much as we are suspectful that they stole it, we don't have ironclad proof, and therefore it is indeed returned to them. In the event that they're no longer, then it is given to the husband, master, or inheritors. Says the Gemara, V'kulu sha'amru b'shas misasan, and all of them, at the time of their misa, they said, shall play nihem, that the item belongs to so-and-so, meaning explaining that it was indeed stolen from a certain person. Yaseh kiperushan, we do that which they said, and we return it to that person. Vim lav, and if not, and if we do not believe them, but rather we think that this wife, this child, this slave is just trying not to give this item to the husband, parent, or master. So if we don't believe them, Yaseh Peirush Lipeirushan, we have to make an explanation to that which they said, and then we can, yes, return it to the master, the husband, the Yarsha. Rashi says, Yaseh Kipeirush, actually, this is the first case. We do that which they said. Bim lav, Yaseh Peirush Lepeirushan, says Rashi, 6 lines down, Koloimar, Vim loy mehem la'anu nifgad shavigadin shaloi say blindly. If you don't believe them, rather you think it shall bailim shalam when we take busha. They're embarrassed. They know it's lomer shall bailim. The lo lischazu ki gazlanim. Kanavim yasa nifgad pirush. Achel the perushai. Sheachzal bailim shaleluv loy loisa plani. We do not return it to the person they said, but rather we indeed return it to the husband. Says the Gemara, story de Besu de Rabbi Baruch Chana, 4 lines down, and Beis Amid Aleph, the wife of Rabbi Baruch Chana, Kikashach va'amra, as she was dying, she said, honey, keep these earrings, de Marta, ubnei Marta, belong to Marta, and his daughter, and his daughter's children, who gave them to me as a bikadain. Also, if you believe what she's saying, asa peirusha kipeirusha, do that what she said. Vim loy asa peirush lepeirusha. If not, make your own explanation, and you could keep the items. A little bit of a different way of saying, if the family appears wealthy enough that it could be theirs, meaning if there's circumstantial evidence that it makes sense, belongs to the family, then you give it to them. But if that doesn't make any sense, the Perusha, and we do not give it back to the family, rather we keep it for the person himself. And we continue 10 lines down that we Mishnah taught us. Not the Mishnah, the Brisa, that if it belonged to a child, we took it for them, we make a trust for them. My Segula, says the Gemara, Rav Chisda Amar, Sefer Torah, Rav Huna Amar, Tikla D'Achamine Tamari. Tub Shatim. What is a Segula, and what way do we make a trust for the person? Either you purchase a Sefer Torah, and that's where the child will be able to learn from, or Rabbi Rav Huna says, Dikla, you purchase a palm tree, and the child, Tikachel Minei, Tamri, will be able to be supported, sustained from the dates. Now we go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah taught us that a father cannot create a chazaka on the property of the child, nor the child in the property of the father. Amar Rav Yosef, afilu chalkai, says Rav Yosef, even if the father and the son separated, the son is no longer being supported by the father, still, they cannot create a chazak in each other's properties. That's Rav Yosef. Whereas Rav Amar chalkai loi, if they separated, then the din in the Mishnah does not apply, and then the yes could have a chazaka in each other's property. Amar Rav Yirmiyah midifti araya to Rava of Rabbi Ovdi. Ovdi did a story chalkai lai kirava, like Rava, that once the son is no longer living with the father, he could just make a chazaka in his field. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, a second raya to Rava, Ishtayili Rav Chia mehormaz. May Rav Chia mehormaz told me ad the shayir the ishtayi Adishir. That's actually Chia Mehormaz Adishir. That's the name of the place. The Ishtayi was told to him, Rav Achavar Yaakov, Sheder and Nachar Yaakov, Chalkai Loi, that if the father and the son are no longer living together, the Mishnah does not apply to them. It says the Gemara, that is indeed the halacha. The Elchasa Chalka Loi, the din does not apply to them. Tana Miyachi, Ben Shechal Vishtai Shenishkar Sharin Kishar Kol Adam, no longer are they considered in the property of the father, and therefore they will be able to be made a chazaka one into the other. Continue 4 lines from the white lines. Itmar, says the Gemara, Echad min achim. We have 2 different people. One of the brothers, that he was managing the estates of the house, whose house of the father that was nifter. And then there are bills and there are different documents that appear in the brothers' names. And the brother says, Shaliem, these bills, these assets, are my own. Avi Ima, that came to me from my mother's father, my maternal grandfather. Amarav. So the question is that real or not? So says Rav in the last line, Alav lahavi raya. He has to bring a raya. Ushmol Amar, no, since he's been there, ala achan lahavi raya. So classical shayla, who is the muhsik who has to bring a raya? Machlaik as Rav and Shmuel. Amar Shmuel, Maidili Abba, says Shmuel, Abba, Rav agreed to me, She'im meis, then everyone agrees, Allah Achen Lahavi, right? So only discussion is while is he alive, is it on the brothers or him? Asla Rav Papa, ask Rav Papa and Shmuel, Kulan Tainina Luhu. Do we say Ataina Liasmi? And saying that the father would not be able to say, of course not. So therefore, if the brother died, why do we assume that it belongs to other brothers? He would not have been able to do so while the brother was alive. Rava, says the Gemara, alright, so we just said, what did Rava do? He was apik zuga de sarbla. He took a pair of scissors from the person who makes garments, a sifra dagarata, may ask me below raya, without a raya. So with below raya, so we see that he did take it away from them. Says the Gemara, again, if it's items which are normally rented out, normally lent out, and therefore the fact that they're in a certain location doesn't prove anything, there's no muksik. Why? Because they are mitaltalin. So b'dvarim nashal hask, here as we turn over to Nun Beis and Beis, says the Gemara, Kiddush Shalach, Ravuna Baravin, Dvarim Asuyin, Lahashcha, Lahaschcha, V'amr Lekuchen, and Biyadi, and so claims he bought them, Einai Neman. Says the Gemara, indeed, Kasha, this is a Kasha. Amar Rav Chisda, 3 lines down. Laishanu aladein chalukin bi'isasan. The din is only where they did not divide for their food or other expenses. Avachalukin bi'isasan, emar me'isasai kaimetz. But if they split up for their food, then we could say that maybe he was kaimitz on his food. He was a kamsin. He didn't have a lot of food, and he used the extra money to buy this item. And maybe indeed it was his piece of land. Raya b'mai, says the Gemara. How can you bring a raya? Rabba ma raya beidim rishis raya mekira mashtar. Amli Rav Nachman. Ha Rav v'ha Shmuel. Ha Rabba v'ha Rav Shishes. Mar keman tzvirlei. Who are you holding like? Amarle no masniti yadana. I don't know, but I know one thing. I know a Mishnah, which is going to be like Rav. Titanya Echem and Achem, one of the brothers, that he was living and taking care of the house. And he claimed he has to read the proof. And similarly, she nice ass. When a standard was told Abayis that she's working in the husband's house, she came from either grandparent. She has to bring the proof. Says the Gemara. So those are 2 different cases proving our point. And obviously, the question is, why do we need 2 cases saying the same thing? So explains the Gemara, you know why? Because Ma'ud I would have thought, Isha, when it comes to a woman, Kima de Shvicha Milsa, when it comes to a woman, since it's a shvach for her to be managing the properties. Damri Kodar Kame Yasmi, like Gazla mi Yasmi. So therefore, if she's going out of her way to do something for the Yisaimim, maybe there's a svara to say she would not steal for them. And therefore, maybe she does not have to bring a raya. Kamashplan, that even still, even with the svara that she clearly wouldn't steal from the Yisaimim, Lamaisa, she needs to bring a raya that the item is hers. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmaya.